Mian Quinola had a serious accident 7 months before we met her. She fell out of a tree she was climbing onto a branch which penetrated her rectum, causing severe damage. She lives with her grandparents in a remote area of Palawan Island in the Philippines. She needed free surgical care. Erick Makahilam is a very self-conscious teenager. He hides a large cystic hydroma on his neck. It has been growing for several years and could become life-threatening. He needs free surgical care.
Then the blood would accumulate and clots, and there's a condition called platelet trapping.
Joseph Oliveros was born without an anus. He has always lived with a colostomy, which has become horribly protruded. He has never attended school, and his mother has to change and bathe him up to 15 times a day. These are just 3 of the nearly 300 surgeries of all types that were performed on a recent 2-week free surgery camp on Palawan Island in the Philippines. It was yet another in a long series of missions sponsored by the World Surgical Foundation. Palawan Island in the Philippines. It's the furthest most western island of all 7,000 islands that make up the Philippines. On the far side, the South China Sea. It's an island rich in beauty and natural resources. It's a paradise, but not for everyone. The majority of people on these islands, away from the major urban centers like Manila and Cebu, have very limited access to medical care, particularly if surgery is needed. A Palawan Sunset is the story of a nearly 2-week-long free surgical camp on Palawan Island that teamed up 37 doctors, nurses, and volunteers from the World Surgical Foundation with another 8 surgeons, anesthetists, and nurses from Manila. The World Surgical Foundation got its start almost 15 years ago by doing free surgical camps in the Philippines. Since the organization began in 1997, the World Surgical Foundation has been to the Philippines many times. They have fine-tuned the process of delivering a full range of surgical care to underserved populations throughout the world, from India, Thailand, Ecuador, Honduras, to Ethiopia. But returning to the Philippines has a special significance for many of the members of the organization. The group arrived in Puerto Princesa, the capital of Palawan province, on St. Valentine's Day, February 14, 2010. Western Command, Westcom, a Philippines military base outside of Puerto Princesa near the airport. Hundreds of potential patients were waiting. This was not the first screening. These individuals had been passed through earlier screenings. A setup day in the schedule had already been lost because of a flight delay from the States, so the team was immediately put into service.
The public hospital where they wanted us to do gynecology and peds, it's a 50-bed hospital, and right now they have 200 people in the hospital. I think it's just par for the course. Every time we have certain issues that have to be worked out, we have to figure out a way to make it work. I like being able to come back and to go back to the basics of medicine, and they're just sitting there seeing things and trying to help out. And we're not thinking about anything else really. We get to get back to the roots of why we went into medicine, and it's refreshing.
We have an obligation to give back. You know, we have such a blessed life in the United States, and the world needs our expertise to serve the underserved.
As a second-year resident, Dr. Purvi Parikh was along on a 2004 World Surgical Foundation mission to India.
My experience on that brigade to India was one of the best experiences I had had. It really brought home why I went into medicine in the first place. It really made me appreciate the things that we had at home, but it also made me realize how much need there is around the world.
Taking care of people that otherwise would not get taken care of is very rewarding. Chance to to truly give without anything aside from the goodness of the care we provide as a reward.
Does she have any questions for us?
They're very tough people. You'd ask them if they were hurt or if they were having pain, did they need more medicine, and they were always okay. You know, they were just happy to be taken care of.
Yeah, okay. We gotta give her some. Okay.
They're all there. The ones on the left-hand side, all of those are mine. It's been my dream since, residency to go on a medical mission. It's some way to give back, even if a little bit, if you have the time. Not just by treating patients, by also giving a little bit of information and teaching to the local doctors.
Once the patients have been screened, the next question is where and when the surgery will be done. Hospital Ning Palawan, the government hospital, would be one site, but they could only provide beds for 10 patients. 2 days after the surgery began, that facility was already filled up with just the gynecology and urology patients. The other facility was a small military hospital on the Westcom base. In practically no time, with the supplies, donated equipment, and special gear that the World Surgical Foundation provided, the facility that typically saw 2 surgeries per week was converted to a 4 operating room hospital with 7 procedures going on simultaneously. In 9 days of surgery over a 2-week period, 300 operations were performed. There were the usual cleft lip corrections. There were many thyroid goiters, hernias, and other assorted disorders. Typically on every mission, one story stands out from all the rest. This time it was the case of Mian Kinola, the girl who fell out of the tree and caused severe damage to her rectum. She was given an emergency colostomy immediately after the accident, but the damage to the rectum was not repaired and her colostomy was now seriously prolapsed. Dr. Alvear decided that he needed to operate to repair what he could. The surgery was scheduled for early the next day. Mian had been through a lot since her accident and she continued to be very brave. By 9 a.m. the surgery began. It was an extremely complex case and Dr. Alvear wouldn't know the extent of the damage until the procedure was underway. 5 hours later, it was finished, and the outcome was very positive.
Try to wake up a little bit.
We finally concluded the operation. It was very difficult, and I'm very happy that Dr. Velchek from New York City was here to help me. She should be hopefully become normal. So the only problem we have now is infection. So we're going to give her antibiotics during the time that she's in the hospital. So we'll probably be in the hospital for at least over the weekend, and hopefully we can send her home by Monday or Tuesday.
As she left the hospital, it was pretty clear that Mian had a little fan club. Because public transportation would pose a hardship for her journey home, Congressman Mitra's office arranged for her to be given a ride. She lived several hours away, and the roads were sometimes quite rough.
May bag na yung bag.
Finally, the road that led to the house where she lived with her grandparents. Back to the life she had known before the accident. Soon her mother would be going back to Manila, and Mian would be able to go back to school. And the Palawan Sunset would lead to better days for her and the hundreds of people that the World Surgical Foundation was able to help on this island. Please help the World Surgical Foundation continue to do its work all over the world. Your generous contributions will enable us to serve many more people like Mian.